good evening. I would like to welcome everyone in South Africa and in Germany and wherever they are in the world on behalf of the Konrad Adenauer Foundation.
Tonight, however, we want to explore which lesson can be learned of the cooperation between Germany as the presidency of the European Union and South Africa as a presidency of the African Union, as well as both of us being non-permanent members of the Security Council of the United Nations until the end of the year.
Our understanding of the relationship between Germany and South Africa dates much further than just when President Mandela and Chancellor Kohl met in 1996. And President Mandela met Chancellor Kohl, and they agreed on a systematic relationship that will allow them to be able to respond to the needs of the South African economy at the time. More than 600 German companies came to the South African economy and employed more than 100,000 mostly skilled workers. The German companies understood that to train and skill the workers is an investment. It is not a cost to the company. It is in the multilateralism between the two states where a huge impact has been achieved, even though it is in the short term, in the technical, political, and technical area of globalization. Germany has been in the United Nations Security Council as a non-member, a permanent member for the past 6 years, and South Africa for the third term. But they have mastered the ability to network in the Security Council and being able to put into practice their own approach to global new world order that will enable for peace, the rule of law, the ability of states to be able to not going alone, but work together in the demands of meeting peace of the world.
South Africa and Germany share many views on democracy and human rights. I think we have made use of this in international fora, but we can do better in the future. It is, I think, very important that we intensify. I think also the Ambassador Zani dwelt on that, to see where we can join forces. And I think expectations on the South African AU presidency and the German EU presidency.
Multilateralism needs to be reformed. And if we're going to reform it, we really need to identify some common ground. The first step of that common ground is to identify common values, of course. And I would argue that on many fronts, both South Africa and Germany, and more broadly the continent and the European Union, certainly in terms of what we espouse in our declarations and in our statements, share a number of common values. And these are potentially useful if we're going to be looking at how we can agree together on what needs to change in the global governance system, because the global governance system needs a paradigm shift. And I think partners around economic and social issues, such as Germany and others, I think can play a really critical role in helping South Africa be a force for stability and hopefully prosperity in the region.
The African continent was able to unite, and also Ramaphosa was able to unite African leaders. I think there is a strong African voice which was able to articulate needs and demands with regard to the pandemic, also with regard to the economic situation. South Africa was leading by example, and also the continent is trying to find a common response to the socioeconomic challenges.
In the direct vicinity of South Africa, and that's where the region is stable as long as South Africa is stable. And that is a huge challenge for the President Ramaphosa. The other one is to lead at home, to lead the country into reforms which are long overdue, to break up some of the issues that have been building up. So whilst the government he has to lead in the region, I have my doubts that he will be able to succeed on his own in South Africa. He will need support from outside. If you look at the figures as they are now, I would say there is little time for real reform. And at this time, you need friends and partners.
South Africa is currently facing a huge financial burden. At the moment, the current debt rate, the pace per day of new debt is about 2 billion rand. It's a huge amount of money which South Africa has to borrow.
The South African companies' ability to expand their market into the rest of the continent will enable the economy to be able to respond, to generate the income that is needed to service the debts.
Germany will flank everything which is possible, let's say, in approaching African Development Bank, in approaching World Bank, in approaching the IMF, if necessary, to make the situation easier. But let's say it's not like falling down like manna from heaven. One has really to arrive at a solution which is consistent in itself.
What we can say for sure, however, is that the topic of the webinar was well chosen, I think. We heard a lot about the potential of the bilateral relationship. However, there seem to be as well many challenges also to this relationship. We heard a lot about South Africa as a strategic partner of Germany.